Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial series on making graphical user interfaces with Python. So when you're working with graphical user interfaces in Python, you'd usually use Tkinter or PyQt. We're going to be using Tkinter, which interacts with TCL script. Tkinter is pre-installed and so is TCL script. So let's start off by creating a new file. Let's call this my GUI.py. We'll have to import the Tkinter module, import, and if you're using Python 2, you'd use capital T for Tkinter, and if you're using Python 3, you'd use lower t. Tkinter as tk. Then here we'll say root is equal to tk.tk, tk.tk, and tk. Now what did I just do here? I created a window, which is what we'll be discussing about in this video, a window called root, and that's because we're using the tk function of Tkinter, and this creates a window. Since our window is created, let's run this, and nothing happened. That's because we haven't started GUI execution, as in we haven't started our Tkinter windows. They aren't running, they've just been created, they aren't running. So we'll have to say root.main loop to start its GUI execution. Great, this is our Tkinter window. I can move it around just like any other window. Minimize, maximize, restore down. I can resize it, and I can close it just like any other window. But as you can see here, our program is running, and once I close the window, the program stops. So main loop runs as long as your window is open. So that's why if I say print hello Tkinter and I run this, so you can see there's no print over here. That's because our main loop function stopped any scripts that come after it. But as I said, main loop stops once you destroy the window or close it. So you can see hello Tkinter here, and then the program exited. So now we've created a basic window, but just take a look at this. When I run it, the title is TK by default. I want to change it to something like my window, so we can do that. So between your variable definition of root and your main loop, you say root.title, and this we can put it as my window. Let's run this. As you can see, just make this a little bigger. Yes, the title has changed to my window, and now I want to resize the window because it's a little too small by default, right? So we can do that by using a function called root.geometry. Do remember that you can use any variable name instead of root, just that root is the variable that is most commonly used. There's no reason for it. Size should be entered inside a string 500 by 300. That's the width by height, separated with an X by 300. You can change it to whatever you want. Let's try and run this. As you can see, this is the size of my window. now what I want to do is disable resizing of this. I don't want people to be able to resize it vertically or horizontally. So we can try this. Root dot resizable. You can put this before the geometry or title, doesn't matter. Inside this you put false and false. For X is for you can't resize, and Y also you shouldn't be able to resize. Instead you can also try 0 and 0. So let's try false and false. So run this. F5. And as you can see, I'm not able to maximize it. I can't resize it. All I can do is minimize and close it. So that's how you disable both the X and Y. If you want to, let's see if we can enable just the X repositioning. Saying true over here. Let's check. True. Let's run this. And you can only resize this. If we try to resize from the bottom, it doesn't work. There are a few glitches which indicate that it won't work. So as you can see, I get the option, but it doesn't resize. I can do it the other way around as well, but I won't be getting into that. So this is the important stuff about Windows, but there are several other things that we can do. Let's say I want to close my window. The function would be destroy. So it would be root.destroy but unfortunately you can't put any code after main loop, and we'd have to have something like a button inside our GUI so that we could call this destroy function. But we can't do that as of now. We don't have a button, and you would use destroy only if you know you're never going to use that window again, or if you're fine recreating the window from a fresh start without any of its contents. I mean, you can use the root variable again after using destroy, but all of its contents will be gone. For example, say root.destroy, it won't work, sorry, can't put anything after a main loop. So this is your window, and you can put widgets inside a window. The same way, you can see my editor, Visual Studio Code, all of these are buttons. You could say that this is the text field, this is scrollable field with buttons. These buttons would be your files. This is a button, this is collapsible, and everything that you use on a computer these days is a GUI. Command lines are very rarely used now. So in the next video, you'll see how to create simple widgets such as text boxes. Of course, not ones that you can type in, not yet, but text boxes to label things. In the previous video, you saw what windows were. And I also mentioned something about widgets. So widgets are elements in your window which let you interact with the computer. For example, all of these are widgets. This is a button. This could be another button. This could be a text field. All of these could be buttons. Do we have an image here? Yes, this is image of Python. And this altogether forms our window. So we'll start off by creating simple widgets called labels. The labels are used to display simple text. You can also use them to display images, which we won't be getting into right now. So we can create our label. Let's call this hello is equal to tk.label, capital L, oops, wrong, tk.label. In this, you can see we have to enter an argument called master. Now master is the window in which the label should come in. Right now we only have one window, which is root, so let's specify that, root, comma. Now we'll have to specify the text that we want to enter. So we say text is equal to a string, hello world, hello world, hello world, or hello Tkinter. Let's try and run this. We still haven't got our widget. It's because we haven't main looped it, or in the case of widgets, packed it. We have to add these to the window. We've just created them. We haven't added them to the window yet. So we can show them in the window with pack or grid or place. Right now I'm only going to show you a simple version of pack, and in separate tutorials I'm going to show you grid, place, and a little more about pack. So for now we'll just look at pack. So my widget name hello.pack. Do I have main loop? Yes, but main loop won't work. We need pack. Let's run this. And there we have it, right in the center top. We have hello Tkinter. The default position for pack is the top. I'll show you how to change that in a future tutorial, but this is all for now. I want to create another label. Let's call this label2 is equal to tk.label. We'll copy this data. We haven't got another window yet. And in this, let's enter this is another label. And now let's mention another argument. We've got several arguments here, but one of the arguments here is font. We can also have the background and foreground, but let's change the font for now. The font is equal to, and in this we have a tuple. In the tuple we enter the font. I'd like Calibri. In a future tutorial, I'll link all the fonts available. We have to enter the size. I'm going to take 30. 30 is pretty big, but we'll take that. And in this bold or italic, all those arguments. Bold, italic, underlined. And run this. We forgot to pack it. Let's pack it. Label2 dot pack. Let's try this out. You can see this is Calibri, if I'm not wrong, the font. It's bold and it's much larger than the other labels. You can try out with some other fonts, which as I said, will link to the description. And we packed it. We can also change the font, the color. Let's change the FG. FG is equal to blue. Let's try that. You can see it's blue in color now. There are several colors. take red, got red here, several custom colors as well, which I'll be doing another tutorial on. Tkinter is very vast. So that's all for this tutorial. You saw some important things about labels. We can change the background as well, but that isn't something very unique to labels. You can do that with almost all widgets. So this is all for now, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Just a note, I'll be doing all or most of my tutorials for Tkinter as premieres, so stay tuned. Also, do not forget to subscribe and like this. So subscribe to my channel and like this video, since it's the only way that I can be supported. Let's take a look at Tkinter Buttons. Now, Tkinter Buttons are another type of widget which allow you to press a button that executes a function. It's pretty similar to how you create your labels. So let's create a button. Let's call it hello button is equal to tk dot button. Same way that we did for labels, we specify the parent. Now we can enter the text that should be displayed. If you're coming from HTML, you could take this as a value, text as the value that you give for the inputs. Let's give the text as say hello. Okay, so we've done this, and we also need to associate a function with it, or else it's totally useless. So let's associate a function. Let's say command is equal to, and in this we enter the name of the function. So we'll call this say hello, and we'll also have to define the function, right? So def say hello, we're defining it now. Let's call this we'll create an instance. Let's create a label, and same text here, we'll take it as hello world instead. Hello world, then we need to pack. So same class, so we can use pack. Say hello. Now we have to pack the hello button, right? And show it .pack. Okay, here's where things get interesting. If you're on Windows, the button should look like this. It's the native Windows button, if I'm not wrong, for apps. It looks similar for Windows 7 as well, if I'm not wrong. Windows 8, 9, 8 and 10 as well as 7, they've all looked similar. So if you click on this, you can see hello world coming in the bottom one by one. Hello world. Let's close this and start the program again. Say hello, and the command was say hello here. You can rename the function to whatever you want. Say hello. As you can see, we've got several labels here. Instead, we can also attach a print statement, which I won't be doing as of now. And you can also add images, just the way that you could do with labels. As I had said in the previous video, you could do the same with buttons as well. There is a small difference between buttons images and label images, but that's not a very big difference. So we can also add some styling, and this is really cool. We can add the x padding. So pad x is equal to the padding, as in the width or whatever you would like to call it. So pad x is, let's call it 60. Run this. You can see it's the button is really wide. I can even change the padding y is equal to, let's call this 25. 25 looks good. Run. You can see this is a pretty huge button. I'm going to revert it. No need for this pad y. And can we add the font? Yes, we can change the font as well. Let's take this. It should be pretty cool. Let's take the same style. Yes, see this? Same way that we did for labels. And when I click on it, it changes its color, but that's fine. So we added styling as well. Delete this. We can change the background. Let's actually undo that and change the background. We'll keep it in size 16 and we'll keep it yellow. And let's keep the background PG, which can be another color. We'll keep it as green. I don't know how yellow and green go together. So you can see that's the background. It's green. It's a nice button. Doesn't look very native to Windows, but it's still a Tkinter button. It should look similar on macOS and Linux as well. You can try and use the other arguments as well, just color, the anchor, which I won't be getting into, but you can experiment with them. And that's all that you need to know about labels and buttons. Okay, let's talk about a new widget in Tkinter, the entry. So entries are single line text fields in which you can type, unlike labels, which you can't type inside. You can type inside entries and then you can even retrieve the text inside them. So let's create a simple app in which we have an entry. You type text in the entry, then you click on a button, and that button prints out or puts the text that was there in the entry in a label. So let's create a new file and call this entry app.py. We'll have to import Tkinter. Tkinter has tk, and we'll have to create our window. Root is equal to tk.tk, and now our entry. So we have tk.entry. Keep it inside field is equal to tk.entry. Inside this we'll pass the master, root, and there's no text, there's none of that. You only have font. Example, just look here. Do we have text? We don't have text. We have text variable, which is a Tkinter string variable, and I'll be discussing about that in a few videos later. For now, we just need to specify the master. Let's pack it. Field.pack. .pack and root.main loop. Main loop done. Let's run this, and it's resized so that it can fit the entry only. Okay, now see this is our entry. We can type inside it, say hello, You can select the text, but it isn't doing anything as for taking in the text. So firstly, let's just change the title, root.title, title of our window. We'll change it to text layer, text from entry. We'll set the geometry, to around 300 by 300. And now in root.main loop, before that, we'll create another button. Let's call this continue button. No, you can't use continue, right? Continue button is equal to tk.button. Specify our master, root text, as earlier, text is set it to show text, and let's pack this continue button dot pack, and we'll attach a function to this. Command is equal to print it or show text. Let's create our function here, def show text. Don't need any parameters for that. In this, we'll have to print out some labels. So tk.label root comma text is equal to so now we have to retrieve the text that is given inside the entry. How do we do that? Entries have a special command called get. See this get? It's a function, so that returns string, so you can enter that. And here we'll have to pack it. So pack, and now let's try and run this. Type something, hello. You can see hello got printed out. Hello w world. Any text that's inside the entry gets printed out. Need gibberish to type as well. Takes everything. What about \n? \n gets printed out too. We just use \, that works as well. So everything is built into Tkinter to manage this for you. We clicked on the show text button several times without any text entered. That's why we got the space. You can even use the fonts in this for these entries. So let's add a font from here. I'll take this simple font. Even use the same BG and FG. Let's see if that works. Check. Oops, we forgot to enter font. Just entered that. Font is equal to, print this out. As you can see, we've got a horrible color, but it's fine. Hello. Can you show text? Everything works. You can type inside this, no change. And there's another interesting thing with these entries. If you think it's too small, you can put a comma and width if the text field is too small. Width is equal to, let's enter 100. Should be a good number. Yep, sure is bigger, but it's really huge now. You can type inside this. Same text. It's bold. So that's what you need to know about Tkinter Entries. Later I might show you a little more advanced functions with it, but for now this is all. Let us talk about Tkinter text boxes. The Tkinter text boxes allow you to use something like an entry, just that it's multiple lines. So you could take this editor that I'm using, Visual Studio Code, this section of it, you could take it as a text field. So let's duplicate this app, copy and paste. Now let's replace all the entries. Let's replace entry with text, and all of these functions go with it as well. Let's remove the width one. Let's change this to text from text box, something like that. And instead of doing that, we'll print the text. Let's print it out. Print field dot get. Let's type inside this. Just click on this, show text. And we didn't get anything at all. That's because we didn't call it as a function. Let's actually make this a little small as well. Find it personally too big. So remove this styling. Don't want this. FG yellow, BG green, that's fine. And I want the pad X to be 100. No, actually 50 looks good. And I want the pad Y to be 50 as well. Let's try and run this. Hopefully it won't be too big. Yeah, not too big. And now let's try and print this out. We've got the padding here, so you can see 50. Let's try and say show text, and we got an error. It says it required positional arguments, and those arguments, let me just type them down first. 1.0 and minus 1c. Now what is 1.0? Well, it's the index it should start from, and yes, it's a string again, and it's not 1, it's 1.0. I think Tkinter converts it to a float. That's why it requires you to enter a string. And end minus 1c. It goes to the end minus 1c, minus that line, because the last line is automatically typed out, and whether you entered it or not, it's a \n, so it's removing that line. Let's try and type this out. Hello, hello, and I can type in multiple lines. Let's click on show text. This here, show text. Hello, DD and C. There we have it. We'll also try Let's try and write some code. Let's copy this. Let's paste it in here. You can copy paste, yes. Show text, and all the code got pasted over here. So that's the text widget. And if you want to write emails with Python, which I have done, you can use this since you need multiple lines for sure. If you want to write stories, you'd need this. If you're trying to make a text editor, you'd need this. The list goes on and on. You'll need this in several places. So I'd consider this as an important Tkinter widget. There are several functions that are similar for both the entry and the text widget, since both of them are text input fields, and even the parameters are more or less the same. In the next video, there's something interesting, something that you've not seen before at all. So stay tuned. Okay, really important topic coming up. Tkinter Variables. So you know what variables are, and they store data, right? Well, Tkinter variables are more or less the same. So let's import Tkinter as tk, and let's create a few an entry. Just a single entry is fine. So root first, root is equal to tk.tk, then our entry is equal to tk.entry root, and over here we have a parameter called text variable. So this takes a Tkinter variable. So first let me discuss what Tkinter variables are. So let's create a variable tk. There are several type of variables in Tkinter. We have string variables, so string var. We have integer variables, int var. We have double variables, double var. We have float variables. We don't have float variables. We don't have float variables in Tkinter. We only have double vars. And if you're coming from C++, you know that double is a data type. So let's create a string var, tk.string var, and we need to specify the parent. Let's just delete this. Our master, so you can see there. Let's just remove this, I don't need it at all. String var, and in this we have to specify our parent, and over here we can put in variable tk. So now it's putting in all the text into this variable, this Tkinter string variable. You can't use integer variables for sure, because these take texts, they take strings, they don't take integers. You'll see several other widgets coming after this which will need integer and double variables. So let's try and use this. We have to associate a button. Let's copy this. Let's copy a button. Continue button. Let's enter this. Show text, we'll just say entry.get. And instead of entry, not entry, variable tk.get. It also has the same attribute. So show text, variable tk.get. So we have our entry here. The text where should it go? Should go into text variable, the variable tk. Let's pack this entry.pack. And let's run this, see how it goes. Oops, we didn't main loop root dot main loop. Run now. See this? When I say hello is printed out. So this isn't exactly important over here, but then there's an important feature with this. Let's create another string variable. Try this. Call this entry 2 and entry 2. Run this. As you can see, if I type anything in here in the first entry, the text gets entered in the second entry. If you're using Visual Studio and when you create a project, you would see that the project name and the solution name both remain the same. Of course, you can change this later, which doesn't work out as of now, but with Visual Studio it does, and they've used something similar to this. You won't use these for entries exactly. I'm sure you won't use these for entries, but sometimes you might have to, and there are some Tkinter widgets which have to have these. They can't be used without these Tkinter variables. With these entries, and this even works with the text fields. Say text variable for the text fields as well, you have the same argument. So you have int var, double var, string var, several of them. And as we go through the Tkinter widgets, this is what you'll see. So this is not to be considered as a Tkinter widget since it doesn't show up. Of course, this is for GUI, but it doesn't show up as a widget. It's just a Tkinter attribute. So in the next coming videos for the tutorial, you'll see that we'll be using these most of the time, these string variables and int variables. So that's all for now. Okay, let's take a look at Tkinter RadioButtons. So RadioButtons allow the user to select an option from multiple choices. So you could use it to make quizzes. If you have a settings app, you could use it over there. So let's create a new file called options.py. In this, the usual import Tkinter as tk, tk, then root is equal to tk.tk and root dot main loop. Go to top, and now we'll have to create a variable for this, Tkinter Variables. We'll call this opts var, and we're going to use this to find the value inside our radio buttons, from our radio buttons. So firstly, tkinter.int var, since it only returns integers, you could use string var as well. Double var won't work, but you can use string var, but you can use int var since you don't need to convert the data type to integer and then set the value. You can just directly set it as an integer. So we'll create opt1 is equal to tk.RadioButton, and we're using int vars because we do not get the string, the value for our radio buttons, for our checkboxes. We don't get the value inside them, we only get the number. So firstly, let me show you what that is. Let's first enter the variable here, which is our opts var, where the option should be set, and value. Now value can be 1 or 2 or 3. You have to start it from 1, just note that. We forgot to put our comma here. So if we click on this checkbox called opt1, the value in our opts var, when we use value as 1, and you can't enter any data type except for an integer. So opt2 is equal to tk.array. Let's copy this same text. We forgot to put our value, so or our text is equal to option 1. So let's just copy this, let's paste it in here. Value is 2, option is 2. Let's say opt3 is equal to value as 2, value is 3, option as 3. That's great. Note that you can't have the same value. It has to be different. It should be in ascending order. So we'll have to pack all of these. Opt1 dot pack, opt2 dot pack, opt3 dot pack, and it's main loop. Let's run this. So you can see we can select an option from here. So I can select any one of these options, and by default all of them are deselected. How do I find the value inside these? Well, it's simple. Let's create a button first, since after main loop you can't do anything but graphical user interface commands. So let's create a button. But1 is equal to tk.button. We'll call this root text is equal to find the value. Command will be, and we have a lambda here because we're going to be using parenthesis. It's a print statement. Print and opts var dot get. Opts var dot get. So let's pack that. But1 dot pack and run this. So you can see here, if I say find the value, it's 0. None of the options are selected. If I select 1, option is 1, 3, 2, and that's why I said, since it's only returning integers and not option 2 or 3, we'd use an int var. You can use a string var as well. If you look at the radio button documentation, you can use a string var as well, but it's just easier to use int vars for this. So that's all you need to know about these radio buttons. If you want to set a default value, for example, you saw that nothing was selected. Let's set a default value such as opts dot set. You can set it to 1, and when I run this, default it's set to 1. You can change it to 3 or 2. 3. Let's change this and run it. You can see it's selected the third option, and then you can also associate a command with these. Command that should be executed when that option is selected from a different option. So for example, if you are on option 2 and then you click on option 3 and you have the command parameter here, then the command that you've entered will get executed. I won't be getting into that now since I don't think that will be very useful. What would be useful is having this find the value button to find the value and then save the changes or something like that. So in the next tutorial, you'll be looking at Tkinter checkboxes, which are like radio buttons, but they allow you to select multiple options. Thanks for watching. Let's talk about Tkinter CheckButtons. So Tkinter CheckButtons allow you to use something like a checkbox. In fact, you could call them checkboxes itself. So to take a look at Tkinter checkboxes, let's create a new app, new file. Let's call this checks.py. We'll import Tkinter. Root is equal to tk.tk. Let's just keep the same data. Let's keep this root.main loop, and we'll have to have our variable for the check button, and this is to check if it is selected or not. So we'll call this selected one, and we'll call this tk.intvar our parent root. Then here we'll have to have our check button, so we'll have to say check1 is equal to tk.checkButton. You can see we have a widget root, then our variable, which will be selected1. Our on value should be 1, and our off value should be 0. Should be 0. And then our text, let's take this as check me, an exclamation mark, check1.pack. See if this works. Okay, as you can see here, we have a check button. You can say check me, you can select and deselect it. Pretty cool. On Mac OS this will look a little different, don't worry. This is the native Windows TCL check button. So we need to find the value inside it, right? So now we'll actually add a command to this one, which we haven't done before. Command is lambda, since we're going to be using parenthesis, lambda, we'll call this print, then our selected one dot get. It's an integer, as you can see, it returns only an integer. Run this. If I click on it, get 1 0 1 0. I can even click on the text and that selects and deselects it, and every time it changes I get the value inside it. It's a check button. Now here is a challenge. Why don't you try and make a to-do app, and then in the end you'd have a button after everything that needs to be selected is selected. You have a button in the end, and that button reads all the data in these checkboxes, and then it saves all the data in a text file. That's your challenge. before moving over to the next video. You can also use the font and other options. You do have an image for this as well. You have images for labels, you have images for buttons. For several widgets you have images, and that's what we're going to be discussing about in the next video. Tkinter PhotoImage. Tkinter allows you to display images in a window as well. So to start off, you'll need a PNG image. Here I have my profile icon. You can use any PNG image. Just try and keep it small. And let's create a new file saying png display.py. Import Tkinter SDK root is equal to tk.tk, then root.main loop regular, and up here we say image is equal to tk.PhotoImage. So PhotoImage takes an argument which is the location of the file. So file is equal to, and then inside this the location of the file. So profile.png, it's in the same folder, so I can directly write it. Let's check if there are any errors with this. Okay, no errors at all. Let's close this. But we can't pack this, can we? Image.pack. No, we can't pack images. The only way that you can display plain images is by putting them in labels. So let's create our basic label. img label is equal to tk.label. Our master root, comma, instead of saying text, we say image. As you can see, that's a valid parameter. Inside this we say image. Image is equal to image, and img label.pack. That should be good. Let's try and run this. And as you can see here in our window, I have my profile icon. In future videos we'll be resizing these images, but for now this is good. So you can see it's a regular pack for any image, and it works perfectly. If you give an invalid encoding such as JPEG, JPG, TIFF, GIF, any of those, it won't be accepted. You might get something like a Unicode error, cannot decode, something like that. So you need to use PNGs. If you use the PIL module, which you can install from command prompt with pip install capital P, capital I, capital L, PIL, you can use any file format including TIFF, GIF, PNG, JPEG and JPG. You can use any of those file formats, and you can still use images. Also, it gives you better quality images even after you resize them. But for now we have just a static image, so this should be good. In the next tutorial we'll be making a calculator, a GUI calculator with Tkinter. Okay, let's create a calculator with simple Tkinter. So let's create a new file, call it calculator.py, calculator.py, and import tkinter as tk root is equal to tk.tk, and now we need to set our geometry and title. And now we need a Tkinter string variable for our expression, and this will be carried out in our label. So let's call this our label, X label for expression label. So we have our variable here. It's inside expression var. We're inside root. It's in a grid. Just a regular grid. So after that we need a function for our expression to be added. So our we'll have to pass in an argument, which is the item that's to be added to the list of. It's actually a string, but it will be added to the end. The item that is passed will be added to the end of our expression var. So you can see here in expression var.get plus the item. So just appending an item to the end, and that item will be the value that will be passed, which is 0 or 1, which we have here. So we have several buttons here. So we have button 1 with with the text as 1, and then the command lambda add item, and the item will be 1. You saw that we were taking an argument here, item, we're passing in 1, so 1 will be added to the end, and it's also configured into our label. So now as we click, it will be evaluated. So all of this happens one by one. In the end, you can use but div, but mul, but add, and but sub. All of these can be buttons. But you may ask, how do I put them in a table like manner? How do I put them one next to the other? Well, this is how you do it. So what you'll have to do is go and grid them. So I'll explain more about this later, but 1 should be put in grid 1, row 1 around here, and then but 2 will be put here right next to it, since it's in column 2. But 3 will be put to the next to but 2. But 3 will be put next to but 2. So as you can see, we'll have 3 buttons in each row. As you can see, do this for every one of them, and in the end you can do that even for but div, but grid, for every single one of them. After that, we need a button to evaluate our expression. So let me just explain this. So we have our button eval tk.button root text is equal to evaluate. Our command is lambda expression var.set. So here we're now changing the value of our label indirectly. Eval expression underscore var dot get. So we're retrieving the value inside our expression var, and then we're evaluating that. You know what the eval function does? It evaluates a mathematical expression from a string or bytes. So we have our string here, and then it's evaluating that. Meanwhile, we'll pack it. So So but if val dot grid, yeah, grid. So grid done, and after this we'll have to main loop our root dot main loop. Once that's done, we'll run this. Let's check what the output is. Okay, little too big, but this will do for now. So if we enter, click on 1 is typed, 2 is typed, and 128 by 8, let's evaluate that by 8. So evaluate 16.0, which is correct. There's no clear button, so that's why what you'll have to do is that you'll have to multiply it by 0, and then you'll have to say plus, and then your second expression. So we can also add a clear button, so let's do that. Clear but, copy this, but CLR but CLR, the text will be clear. Command is lambda, it's in lambda function. We'll just set it to nothing. Take it empty. Yes, now let's try and run this. Let's try this. Clear? Yeah, clear works. For 45 into 5 plus 7, evaluate 232. So we are passing our value here. Here's our text, and for the functions you can't use x, right, for eval. That's why you have to put the asterisk sign. You can use the plus and minus signs directly. So if you have any views about this, let me know in the comments, and if you have any modifications that you made or any bug that you ran into, let me know in the comments as well. Thanks for watching. So let's take a look at Tkinter SpinBoxes. So Tkinter SpinBoxes allow you to increase or decrease a number by 1 each time. So you have two buttons next to something like a label. It's a cross between a label and an entry. So let me show you what a SpinBox does. So let's create spin.py, import Tkinter as import Tkinter as tk, root is equal to tk dot tk. Next, SpinBox is equal to tk dot SpinBox, and master should be root. Now I can enter a starting point for it, and from underscore, not from equal to, it's from underscore equal to. It's because, you know, from is a keyword in Python, and that's why we're using an underscore. So from underscore, it started from 3 to 26. 2 is equal to 26. So let's try and pack this. SpinBox.pack and root.main loop. Running this. See how it is. So you can see I've got a SpinBox here. I can increase this all the way till 26. After that I can't. I can even decrease it all the way till 3, and then I can't change it. I can even type inside this 13, something like that, and that's Tkinter SpinBoxes for you. Now by default I wanted it to be set to not 3 but 12. So how do I do that? You would create a Tkinter string variable. So value spin is equal to tk.spinbox, and our variable will be, let's take the variable as root. The parent should be root. Text variable is value spin. It's all entered that, so that's why now we can value spin dot set, which sets the value inside our string variable. We'll set it to 1, and sorry, this is string variable. Mistake, my bad. String variable, set it to 1. Oops, 1 isn't inside the range of 3 and 26, is it? Let's just set it to 13. Run now. As you can see, from 13 I can increase or decrease it. So let's try and print out the value every single time it changes. So you know what parameter we should add? The command and lambda, since we're going to be using print with parenthesis. Inside this, value spin dot get. Now have we done that? Dot get. Run this. As I increase this or decrease it, whenever it changes, the value is put in the console. So that's what you need to know about a spin box. Now, when would you use a spin box? Let me give you a few examples and where I've used it myself. If you need to change the font size, you could use it there. If you need to take the date of birth, you could use it there. If you want to make an app which changes images like a slideshow, you could use this to change the slideshow slide number. There are several applications for the spin box, and that's why I think it's important. Thanks for watching, everyone, and stay tuned for the next video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, since that's the only way that I can be supported. Let's take a look at Tkinter scales, and you can visualize scales as sliders. So new file, scale.py, and then we need to have our variable. Variable is equal to tk.intvar. Inside root, our scale is equal to tk.scale. We need to specify our parent. We can specify even a starting point from, I'll take 1, and 2, I'll take 25. So scale.back. Let me just give you a quick look at scales. Main loop. So this is what a scale looks like. Unfortunately, right now it's vertical. I want to change it to horizontal. So we'll change the orient equal to tk.horizontal. There's even vertical, and can you believe that Tkinter has such attributes? So I can move these around, and that changes the value. I can associate. There's no text variable, there's only variable, and I can associate a variable with it. So I'll take variable is equal to variable, and then let's just add a button. tk.button root text is equal to print value and command is equal to print val. We'll create a quick function here, def print val. We don't need any arguments, or actually no, we don't. We'll directly type it down, print scale, actually variable dot get. We didn't pack this. Oops. Let's pack it and remain loop it. But dot pack. Let's run this. It's 15. The value is 15. 8, 17. Can keep changing this however long I want. There are some parameters that you can pass into this, such as into the spin box, such as slider length, slider relief, and the width. And there are several parameters that you can pass into them, but these are the important parameters. So all of this is great, but what if I want to let's say download an application with Python, and for that I need a progress bar, right, to tell the user how much of the app is downloaded. Well, there's a Tkinter widget for that as well. So stay tuned for the next video. So let's talk about Tkinter Progress bars. So the Progress bar widgets allow you to show the user how much progress has been made in a task. So here's a little demo. As you can see, I've got a button that says go. When I click on it, there it goes. That progress bar keeps increasing. So I'm going to show you how you can make this yourself. Firstly, you'll need to import Tkinter, and then since progress bar isn't included in the default Tkinter module, you'll need to import it from Tkinter's sub module, the TTK module, and with that you can import progress bar. So we've got root is equal to tk.tk, we've got progress bar with the parent root, orientation is tk is horizontal, the length is 100, and the mode is determinate. Now what does determinate mean? Well, in the case of Tkinter, the determinate mode shows how much progress has actually been made. The bar, let me just start the program again. As you can see in here, when I click on go, the bar continues to increase till it reaches the end. In indeterminate mode, a single bar of pretty small size just swipes across this screen, and you have no way of knowing how much progress has been made in the task. So this is determinate mode. Next, we've got a function called def move bar. In that I've got a for loop, and then in the range of 100 the progress bar will keep increasing the value, progress bar's value, to x, which is the number, and then root will be updating its idle tasks. As you can see, enter the event loop until all idle callbacks have been called. This will update the display of the windows but not process events caused by the user. You'll have to do this as well, and then we can use time to sleep. Now we've got to pack progress bar. I'd actually recommend using padding as 10. Then you have next tk.button go command would be move the bar. Then Here we're packing our next button, and after that root.main loop. You could keep the padding to anything you'd like. I just want to maintain a gap between the buttons. Let's remove the padding for now, and also let's increase the progress bar's size. How about 300? Run this and see, got a huge progress bar, and it does the exact same thing. Takes the exact same amount of time, reaches the end. Try this how many ever times you want, and all that's causing it to move is this. What if we use -100? Nothing happens because you can't go the other way around. So that's what you need to know about Tkinter progress bars. I'd love to see you incorporate these into installers that you make with Python, or any heavy task that you're running with Python. See you in the next video. Okay, now for the Tkinter methods of packing, placing, and grids. So these are the methods that you place your widgets inside a window. So let's create a new file, pack, place, grid, .py. Inside this, let's create a label. Once we import Tkinter as tk, root is equal to tk.tk, root.main loop, and on top of this, label is equal to tk.label, label, root text, let's keep it as this is a label, exactly what you've done in the first video. When I say label.pack, I do this. As you can see, it's sitting in the center, top center by default. I want it to sit on the left hand side, so I can do this. Pack. You can see side is an argument. Is tk.left. tk.left. So run this. You can see it's on the left hand side now. Resize. It's in the middle, left middle. As you can see, it's adjusting according to the window size. If I do tk.top, run this. It's the exact same as the usual. If I do tk.bottom, it'll sit on the bottom no matter what. Let's resize this. You can see it's sitting at the bottom, and you could imagine how it would come out for the right hand side. But pack is kind of limited because everything adjusts automatically, and if that's happening all the time, you could get into confusions. That's when you'd use grid and place. So grid allows you to pack multiple Tkinter widgets, and with a specific row and a specific column. So I just want to run a for loop. So if I just run label.grid, it's nothing but a pack, and this stays in the exact same position how much ever I resize it. So I can specify the column in a grid and the row in a grid. So let's just run a for loop. For x in for row in range, let's keep a range of 20, and for column in range 20. Oops, formatting. Let's keep a tab here. Tab, enter. And yes, now here let's create our label, and we'll directly grid this into the column. Dot grid into the column. We'll set it as the column, and row set to be set as the row. Let's run this. Well, as you can see, this took a while to load, but here it is. I've got 20 rows and 20 columns. This is the power of grid. Even if I resize it, it still stays in the same position. This is a little laggy, so I recommend you change it from 20 to something small, 5 or 10. So as you can see, we've got 20 rows, 20 columns. And this is done with grid. I'm specifying the column and the row for each label. Okay, now enough fooling around with this. Let's do something with place. So place allows you to put it at a particular place. So if I put it at X as 25 and Y as 34, it'll fit itself into a specific position. As you can see, it's fit itself at this position. You can change the X and Y. These are the ways that you can place your Tkinter widget inside a window. I hope this tutorial was helpful and you'll use it to your advantage. Tkinter is extremely powerful, and that's why these methods have been associated with Tkinter. And do note that when you're using place, even when you resize the window, it doesn't match with your X and Y position. It can even disappear out of your window. That's why you might have to take into consideration about making the window unresizable, like I'd shown you in the first tutorial, where the user can't resize the window. Or you could be taking the size of the Tkinter window from the user, and then you could place the widgets accordingly. Thanks for watching. There is a flaw with the regular Tkinter text widget. As you can see here, when you start typing multiple lines, you don't get a scroll bar at all. You'll have to use the arrow keys to navigate, and this is rather painful to use. But there's a solution. Instead of using the regular Tkinter text widget, you can use the ScrolledText widget from another Tkinter module, the Tkinter.ScrolledText module. So from Tkinter.ScrolledText import ScrolledText, we even have a scroll bar, but we're going to be using the entire ScrolledText widget as text. So now we can easily remove the TK and the dot, and the ScrolledText widget is completely compatible with the native or regular Tkinter text widget. So I've opened this here. Let me type multiple lines, and as you can see, I've got a scroll bar here. You can navigate with it. And that's all about the Tkinter ScrolledText widget. It works just like the regular ScrolledText widget, and it's completely compatible. All the functions, all the arguments that can be passed while defining are the same. It's also compatible with the regular Tkinter module over here. So in the next video, we're going to be taking a look at Tkinter Alerts. Bye for now. Let's talk about Tkinter Alerts. So Tkinter Alerts are like any pop-up alerts that you see. You don't have to associate a window with them, and they come in three forms: a regular information pop-up alert, an error alert, and a warning alert. Let's take a look at all of these individually. Since it's extremely easy to set up, let's use the regular Python console. So let's type Python or Python 3 if you're on Mac OS. And from Tkinter or import Tkinter message box as Tkinter's alert. It's really easy to manage. So Tkinter message box is a module, and it comes with three types of alerts: show info, show error, and show warning. So let's take a look at show info first. So when I say alert dot show info, the first argument is a string, and that's going to be the title of our window. Let's call this demo alert, comma, and this is the content of the alert. Let's say this is the content. Close it with parenthesis. And as you can see here, we've got a window, since we haven't created any window so far, and we've even got an alert. So as you can see, the title is demo alert, and it says this is the content, and it's come with an I for info. Let's just copy paste that for show error as well. Instead of show info, show error. Show error is exactly the same. All that it does is that it gives you an X sign here instead of the I. What about show warning? Well, show warning just gives you an exclamation mark. So show warning, an exclamation mark. So that's all you need to know about these alerts. This is a very basic introduction to Tkinter Alerts. There are more functions in the Tkinter Alerts, but I won't be getting into them in this course. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Let's take a look at Tkinter FileDialogs. So FileDialogs allow you to open a folder or file, even save a file using a graphical method in a GUI. So in Tkinter, that's especially easy. All you have to do is import the module, import Tkinter.FileDialog as dialog, and let's say file dir1 is equal to dialog dot. As you can see, we have ask open directory, ask open file, ask open file name, ask open file names, ask open files, ask. It just goes on. So you could use all of these for different purposes. In this tutorial, I'm only going to be showing you ask directory, ask open file, ask save as file, and ask open files. So let's start off with ask directory. So as you can see, we have options here, but for now we're going to go with it as empty. And we've got a file dialog here. It's asking me to select a directory. So let me select this PC. We can't open that. Let's try and open music. Nothing happened. We haven't done anything with it, so we'll have to print it out. dir1 file dir1, run this. Okay, we're back here. Select folder, and then in our terminal we can see it's printed out the directory. So it does exactly the same even with others. So let's try ask open file. Let's run this. So it's asking me to open a file now. So if I go to pictures, as you can see, it automatically opens a directory using the open method, so that you don't have to reopen it with that function. So that's the ask open file. But let's run this again. As you can see, I can't select more than one file. I can only select a single file. That's when ask open files comes in. Run this. Can select multiple files. If I say open, I get a list. I get a list of in this case, 2 IO text wrappers for my files. So that's all for the Tkinter ask open files. What about save files? Yes. So ask save as file and save as file name. Let's try save as file. Run this. And as you can see, it's asking me to save something. Let me just say, and I get save as type. Unfortunately, I haven't added anything in this. I'll put a link in the description below so that you can find out all the arguments that can be passed with these file dialogs. But for now, we're going to leave all of them empty. So I can say file name file.txt, and it's even opened a file here with mode W. So thanks for watching, everyone. And this is the last video of my tutorial series on graphical user interfaces with Python. And if you want more information on the graphical user interfaces with Tkinter, you can check out Python's documentation. Thanks for watching.